Hi, everybody. Are you a B2B marketer or do you own a B2B brand? You're in for a treat. Today, we're talking to an expert on going to market strategies. We're going to talk about positioning and mistakes that are made. So stay tuned for another episode of Strategy Talks. Here we go.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Morin-van.
Hello, everybody. I am Morin-van with another episode of Strategy Talks. We're well into season 4. Who's excited about that? I am totally. We have another amazing episode for you today. I'm going to bring onto the stage with me my friend Katie Hollar. Hi, Katie. How are you today?
Hi, Doreen. Doing great.
Good. So I want to welcome everybody to Strategy Talks. If you're listening and you're here live with us on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Facebook, welcome. If you're listening to Strategy Talks as a podcast, want to make sure to do a quick shout out to you as well. Katie, we're going to talk to go-to-market strategies. But before we do, I want to congratulate you. You just started a brand new business. You are now the Market Alchemist. That's amazing. I love it. So tell us a little bit about that journey before we get started.
Thank you. Yes, I launched my consulting and fractional marketing business for B2B brands, which we're going to talk about today, earlier this year in February. And I had spent my entire career in B2B marketing teams, leading, growing B2B brands, particularly in these marketplace type businesses. So the last 3 years I was at Clutch, which is a review site and an online marketplace to find business service providers. Prior to that, I had spent a decade with Capterra, which is a similar platform in the software space. And so through those experiences, had worked with thousands of B2B brands and seen some of the challenges they had advertising on the platforms that we were working with them on, but also just more broadly, and how do they really stand out? And as these categories of software, when I was with Capterra, continued to become more and more proliferated and crowded, it became more and more challenging for startup companies to really make a name for themselves and differentiate. And then switching over to the services side, I found they were even further behind kind of that evolution of building a really strong positioning and storytelling muscle within their organizations. And I think it's even more important for service businesses because they are selling their expertise and they're trying to show the value they can create for their clients. And so many of them just really struggled to tell a compelling story that was going to get the clients they were attracting to convert. So I saw an opportunity, having worked in-house on these problems, to go partner with individual brands and help them craft that narrative and then really define who are you for, who are you targeting, and how are we going to reach them? And that's where the go-to-market strategy piece comes in.
That's awesome. And as I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a common problem. But when you're talking about these companies that you've worked for, they're larger. So my question to you is, if somebody is listening and they're B2B marketer and they're in a company like that, either with software or they service provider, and they are recognizing that they need to tell that story, my question is, who is responsible for that story, or where do you get that story? Where do you start? This is not a question that's on my list of questions, but as I'm thinking is like, this would be something that if I were in that space, I would be like, yeah, that is exactly what we're missing. But what can somebody do? Where does the conversation start?
Yeah. And that's where I really feel that it needs to start at the top with the founder CEO primarily. And this is not just a marketing initiative to do great positioning work and great messaging work, it really needs to span across your entire business strategy. So I think a pitfall that a lot of companies make is that they say, okay, marketer, you're in charge of this, right? Go tell our story. But then you have sales folks who are out telling a totally different story than what marketing is putting together. And you may have a product team that's building a product that doesn't align to that narrative. So it really needs to start with the leadership and primarily the owner or CEO building that strategy. This is what we want to be. This is who we want to target. And that needs to permeate the entire leadership team and functions of, okay, how are we going to come together and really tell this story across every transaction that we have with our clients? And I think a marketing leader is a great steward to do that, right? Because we are often the ones who are tasked with translating that story into 15 different formats for every different channel we need to go promote. But it starts there with making sure that what you're saying actually aligns with what you're doing and the product or the service that you're offering. So it's really foundational. And I think there's two schools of thought. You can start with the category. This is the thing we do, right? And we want to pick that. Or you can start more with a target persona. This is who we want to be for. And then we're going to build products and services that best solve the problems that they have. I don't think there's one or right or wrong way to do that, but I think you ultimately need to choose both of those things. You need to choose who you're for and what you do. And that's really category, right? Like, how do you frame yourself in the mind of someone who might be considering working with you? And that's the two foundational pieces you need to establish to get started.
That is some great information. And I think that anybody who's watching this are like, yeah. And I do think what you've seen, and that's probably why you are out consulting, is that is something that's missing, those conversations, which is really what Strategy Talks is about, putting conversations forward and shedding light on conversations that aren't happening, right? So we're talking about these things here. So what are some things, some pitfalls, some things that are missing from go-to-market strategies or positioning as far as B2B?
Sure. So I'll start with that, one of those two foundational elements, picking a category. And I think a challenge that I see a lot of brands struggle with is not picking a category that they can own. And so when I say category, what I mean is, in the software space, this is probably really clear. CRM software, project management software, marketing automation software, right? We have these established kind of line items in our budget that says, this is what I have to go find, and let me go compare the different providers. In the services space, it's more nebulous, but there are still categories, right? There is website developer, there is social media marketing support, there is accounting services, right? So there's still these distinct categories that people think of in their mind. And I think a lot of times businesses struggle to pick a category that they can really be the leader in. There's a lot of talk about category creation, but that's a big feat. And I think a more achievable goal is, can you pick a up and coming category that's nascent where you can really educate your prospects around how you are the leader in that space, how you're at the forefront of that change? I'll give an example. When I first graduated college, I went to work for an agency called Boldmouth, my first job out of school. And this was in 2008. So it was right at the advent of social media becoming a thing. And so we tested the waters there and we said, hey, companies, we can help do your social media marketing. And the people we were talking to, they had not spent time on social media. It was something their kids were on at that time. There wasn't even really this concept of company pages or advertising on the platforms, right? So it was so new and that was uncomfortable. We were saying, hey, we're a social media agency. And they were like, don't think that's for us. That's not a thing that we need to be worried about. And so we pivoted and we started calling ourselves a word of mouth marketing agency, which I think was a big mistake in retrospect, because we were trying to change to something that was more comfortable for the conversation. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but if we had known at the time that social media was going to be what it was, which I think we believed, we could have been synonymous with that in the minds of these companies, right? We are the agency that is at the forefront of these platforms, how to best reach your target customers on them. And these are the specific initiatives we're going to drive for you through these social platforms. And I think we struggled with that because we were getting that hesitancy, but we could have really owned that category and educated them, not just about our services, but about what social media was going to mean for their business. And ultimately, we lost a lot of our retainers through the recession. A lot of clients pulled back, and that company ended up going out of business. But it was a good lesson for me early on in my career of how important it is just to be clear in what you're going to do and pick a lane. And I think there was an opportunity that we were right on the cusp of being a part of. But
something great. Yeah. Yeah. I actually just read recently that Poppy, the popular drink, might be getting acquired. And I watched a very short form interview with the founder, and she said this category wasn't even there 5 years ago.
Right.
Created, and Poppy isn't the only one now in that space. This was a I don't even know what it's called, what the category is, but it's like a probiotic, healthy soda kind of thing. Right. Something we didn't know we all needed. And now it's billions of dollars in 5 years. So I totally get what you're saying. Picking the category is really important, and then sticking with that and then highlighting that. And I think that's something that a lot of businesses need guidance on, because when I first started, not quite as early as you, but 2010, the answer I got from almost every local business was, I would be like, so who's your target market? And they go, everybody. And right. So that doesn't work, because you can't be it. And I see that sometimes with agencies, like they do web design and they do social media and they do PR and they do that. And it's like an afterthought of, what are you really good at? I am good at organic social media. I can do content marketing for you all day long. You ask me to run ads, I'm going to outsource that. I'm going to bring somebody in. That's not my expertise, but I totally get that. So when we go to the services industry, are there any examples there of something that people get confused or that they struggle with?
Yeah. So I think what you just shared around picking too many services and trying to say, we do this and we do that, we do that, that is a challenge I see quite a bit. And you get these really vague statements on their website, like award-winning marketing agency, marketing that drives revenue. You're like, that's
should be everybody.
Like, that's what we're all doing, hopefully. I think we built a program actually while I was at Clutch, where we would work with service businesses to just evaluate their website, their landing page that they were driving traffic to. And consistently, we would see when they had a clear, compelling value proposition with a clear call to action. And that was often who they are for, what's the pain point they are solving. They would get 3 to 5x the conversion rate of the average in that category. So even just picking the category, that's just step one. Then you have to stand out, right? And you have to really convey what you do. So we would work with them on, how do you tell a story so that someone's clicked off of a list of all of your competitors, they land on your site and they immediately think, oh yes, this is what I'm looking for. And often they waste that precious first second. What do I see with the headline that's like award winning or leading digital transformation? It's just really vague, and you lose them because there's not a clear understanding of what do you do specifically. And I, like you mentioned, hear all the time from clients I've been working with, yeah, but what if I pick a niche and then scare away other business, right? Like I'm closing myself off to that path. And I've even had to have this pep talk with myself as I've gone out and built this. Okay, you need to eat your own dog food and actually model this.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's scary. And the reality is, I think that's really limiting beliefs, because you're probably not actually turning down business proactively. You're just not attracting the business in the first place if you're so broad in who you're for, right? And people have a million things on their to-do list, and they want to find the expert that's going to help them with one specific problem. And by owning that, by claiming that, that's going to just help you attract more business, and you can always expand over time. But I think especially as an early stage business getting started, you want to really make sure you have a good track record of delivering within a particular niche.
All right. That is really great advice. And I think, like you, I need to eat some of my own dog food. It's hard because you get asked, do you also do this? And as I'm not saying that the marketing market has imploded, but it's definitely, there's a lot of people looking for opportunities and work. And when you're down a client or two, you might be tempted to take something that's not really in your wheelhouse. So I totally get that. And I understand that. I had somebody on Strategy Talks that talked about niching down, and that was a great episode. And definitely people are curious about that. This is a great part of the conversation. If you're watching this, listening to this, listen back to what Katie just said. We need to all do that, figure out, own that space, figure out what it is that we are really good at, and then not just owning it, but then standing out in that space. So I love that. So let's pivot and pull in AI, right? AI is everywhere now. Last year it was up and coming, and ChatGPT came to, and now it was the year of the learning, the LLM, all these learning models, right? We were looking for LLM models, and now it's all about what I'm hearing is AI agents, which is different, right? So last year, a lot of marketers got that scare of, some business owners said, well, just put it in ChatGPT, or people who want to take a budget out and reduce their marketing budget because they can just ask ChatGPT to write something. So what is it doing in the B2B space? And what are you seeing, especially with messaging? Are people using these models? Have people already moved into agents? What are you seeing as far as AI usage, and what can we expect moving forward?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I think it's changing at lightning speed. And so I'm learning new use cases for AI every day. Excuse me. I think at the foundation, AI can be a great partner as you're building out this motion of, how am I going to position? How am I going to message? How am I going to tell my story? Not to just write it from day one, right? I think if you say, go tell a story about my business and here's who I'm for, it's going to produce a lot of really cliche and very not unique copy for you. So I would not recommend using it that way. But where I found it really valuable is getting feedback, doing deeper analysis. One of the things that I've spent a lot of time on over the last few years is understanding, how do these LLMs pull information and make recommendations? Where are they sourcing that information, so that when you do a Google search or when you go into ChatGPT and you ask for, give me a list of digital marketing agencies, how does it decide which ones to pull? And I think our traditional kind of SEO thinking was, build a really great optimized website, get lots of backlinks to it, have your pages have lots of content that is optimized for keywords that's going to help you rank when people are searching for digital marketing agency. And so you still see a lot of people going back to those old tactics of, oh, I think I need to get more backlinks, or I need to optimize for more keywords. And just the way that we interact with these tools is so different, in that we are asking natural language conversations. Okay, I'm this kind of business, and this is the challenge I'm seeing. And I really need someone who's very specialized in organic content for LinkedIn and helping me get my thought leadership off the ground, because I don't have time. Who are businesses that are doing that? And that's a very different conversation than we would just put into a search engine. And so what LLMs are doing is they're taking this prompt that is often much more nuanced and complex, and they're going out and searching across the web for the language you're using to describe what you're looking for. And I think it's much less about your website than it used to be, and much more around, is there a body of work across the web of people telling that story, right? And that's consistent. And so taking it back to positioning and messaging, you need to not just have it live on your website or in your marketing materials, it actually needs to be lived in how your customers are on Reddit talking about your brand, how you are driving media attention. Is there articles talking about your company? Does it tell the same story? If you're posting on your own platforms on LinkedIn and social media, is that a consistent story of what you do and who you're about? And the LLMs are pulling all of those data sources and aggregating to say, oh, okay, based on what you asked me, that example of I need help with thought leadership for LinkedIn, they're going to look across all of those different sources to then come back with a recommendation. And so I think product marketing actually becomes the new SEO in a way, because it's all about evangelizing your stakeholders, your customers, everyone to go out and tell a consistent story about you. And that's where having those foundational clarity points around who you're for, what you do, what category you play in is so important. Otherwise, it's going to be really difficult to rein all of that in.
Because it's going to be too broad. And then, so they're looking for somebody who's really niche.
Yeah.
If you're looking for somebody specific, that's what's going to happen. That makes a lot of sense. I just heard you mention Reddit. So what role does customer feedback play in shaping and refining your go-to-market strategy? And how do you ensure that customer insights are integrated into some of that marketing effort?
Yeah, so I think we've seen in the SEO landscape that, much to many people in the industry's dismay, that Reddit is just becoming more and more of a source for what's being populated in search results there. And I think, we can, as marketers, say, oh, I don't like that because I have less control over that. I think the reason that's happening is because people actually like hearing unvarnished, straight from the customer's mouth, here's my opinions. And that threaded environment of the back and forth, the upvotes, downvotes, like that nuance of a conversation is hard to get. And I think that type of community online has really benefited B2B buyers, because you can get just more detail and ask follow-up questions in a way that we didn't really see several years ago. So all that to say, I think that you need to speak the language of your customers in how you market and the content you're creating. So the questions you're seeing asked on Reddit, I think, are a gold mine of the types of content you should be writing about. What's not clear to them? What are they going out and asking their peers about? And how can I answer that question? And then how can you also empower your customers to go answer those questions on your behalf? Like, brands are not really welcome in the Reddit space. It's there to be a community of people who are interested in a topic. And that's where I think if you own your category, right, you can, going back to the first piece, you can go be an expert on that category. If in 2008, we were very prolific in talking about social media and all the things that were happening there, that would have been welcome because it's educating people and proving value, as opposed to talking about your service or talking about your product. All that to say, I think it's, can you be active in the community about the market you're playing in and actually provide value in community forums like Reddit? There's also a ton of Slack communities, and I just think people are craving real connections with other humans, especially with the rise of AI and finding so much of this kind of fluffy content that's not getting to the heart of what they're looking for. So I think the more you can build a program of advocates who are out there talking about the changes in the industry and how you're solving real problems for them, that's where you're going to see the most benefit.
No, absolutely. I've been offered several times by Reddit to credit for ads. So they're definitely targeting companies to run ads on Reddit. It's definitely up and coming it's a new generation. And I agree with you. I think because AI, there's so many false stories out there, and people like actually having those real conversations, and Reddit is a place for that. I haven't seen AI comments on Reddit. I'm sure they're there. I'm sure there are some deployed, but it's not like on LinkedIn where people just do a plug and play, and you literally, whatever your content is in your post, they just take that and AI answers that question. It's just ridiculous. And I think AI on Reddit, and those kind of communities, as you said, we have real people having real conversations and really telling the truth, which is something that we're going to value more and more as AI comes in, is that real human conversations. Can you believe it? We are almost at the end. So I'm going to ask you one more question, Katie. Looking ahead to next year, are there any trends or shifts that you anticipate will most impact the B2B go-to-market strategies? Is there anything we should and can prepare for as we're going into Q2 of 2025 and then looking ahead to 2026?
Yeah, I think the thing that's on everyone's mind right now is what you touched on in the last question. How is AI going to change our ability to go to market more effectively? And you're really seeing marketing departments shrink substantially in terms of the full-time in-house talent that they are bringing on board. And I think because these agents are able to replicate a lot of the tactical work of doing data analysis, going and doing keyword research, doing ideation and editing. Again, I don't think it's fully there from a go out and create me all the content. I think that's where strategic marketing leadership is still very much valued. But I think that what we're going to see is that companies are increasingly questioning, do I want to hire someone full-time on payroll to go do this? Or is there a way I can bring on an expert from the strategy standpoint who understands my customer really well? They understand the market really well. They understand the industry. They understand the problems that they're facing, and then can help either use AI agents to produce that work and deliver it, or work with some really more technical marketers who are going to help build the go-to-market foundation, whether that be the advertising. I think creative is a huge opportunity. I don't think that AI has really solved the creative challenge yet. I've played around with a ton of these tools and tried to get it to create images, and it's pretty poor. So I think that will come in time, and we should be prepared for that, but still a big need for really great creative. And I think there's an opportunity for marketers to lean more into that art side of the marketing than the science, which we've been so focused on in the past. So that's where I see us continuing to evolve as we look to 2026.
That's awesome. All right, before we close, where can people meet you online, Katie?
Yeah, so my business, again, for B2B companies that are looking for help with this go-to-market positioning and go-to-market strategy, is marketalchemist.com. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's where I'm most active. So Katie Hollar on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I will be back next week with another episode of Strategy Talks. Thank you for those of you who watched all the way to the end or stayed here to the end and listened. I think this was a fantastic conversation. And if you need any help, reach out to Katie about go-to-market strategies and get your business seen, especially on AI when people ask for those experts that they need. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.